That's on a county right away. And I mentioned that, and he said, you put it up, I'll take it back down again. But when you go to widen that road, there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to hit grades.
And what does his wife say?
His wife is gone. He said,
you go east on the gravel, from the intersection north. There's a creek, the first creek goes south, they're about a mile south.
Steve Meyer from that area, the postman, retired now, said he spoke with the old farmhand. The farmhand told him he remembered taking the stones out, hauling them away and burying them. So,
That's where they're at.
yeah. So your last sheet there is from the archaeology director of the Office of State Archaeologist. I have her statement there highlighted in the middle. So the Office of State Archaeologist, as all burials sites in Iowa are protected from intentional disturbance per the Iowa Code 716.5, regardless of their antiquity. We advise either orienting your plans for road expansion so that you avoid any ground disturbance in the vicinity on the south side of 74th, west side of V66, or, if this is not possible, arranging for a non-invasive geophysical survey, ground penetrating radar, or magnetometry, in order to better determine the northern and eastern boundaries of the cemetery and therefore the likelihood of burials within your proposed area of expansion. We don't want an oops moment. Have your crew out there grading up and bring up bones and everything comes to a screeching halt, you know. Or the county I came from, the county attorney there said the worst case scenario, something like that, would be they go along and grade it, bones come popping up, and a family member drives by thinking their family been moved, see the bones, and then file suit or a complaint. So we thought you should know ahead of time so you can figure out what you really want to do with this.
a situation almost on that note has come about. You know, everybody's doing this Ancestry.com, and there was a woman that went to the Blairstown City Hall looking for a family member that was buried in that cemetery. And when she went out there, of course, there's no cemetery. And I guess she was less than impressed and less than pleased. And there were some harsh words exchanged.
She can say whatever she wants, but all the people that are around now have nothing to do with it.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Not completely true. There's people around now that could do something about it.
They could, but they didn't move the stones. The people that moved the stones are all gone.
I'm talking about protecting the cemetery. We've, I can't, without looking at the map, it's over by Pleasant Creek State Park. A number of years ago,
Yes, sir.
we had a very similar situation, and the Cemetery Association, Pioneer Cemetery Commission, excuse me, we had it surveyed. We had a sign up. We had the corners of the cemetery marked. I should check to make sure that's still the case.
Mm-hmm.
And we had an agreement from the landowners that they wouldn't do anything to disturb the inner portion of the marked cemetery. We also went ahead and years ago, the old Carlisle Grove Cemetery, which was a 2-acre cemetery, had been in the late 60s, but cut back to 0.8 of an acre. And it was the reason the town of Garrison and that township stopped using it was they had filled it. In the late 60s, somebody removed, whatever, 60% of the stones is, whatever, took it down to 0.8 of an acre and fenced it off that way. And I would say, I don't know, it was at least a decade ago, we surveyed that and put up a fence. And now granted, those stones, somebody swiped them and did something with them, but we've at least protected the boundaries of the cemetery. So something like that, quite frankly, no matter what happens with the road, should happen for this cemetery.
This is how this all came about, is because we're looking at an engineering firm to come and survey these cemeteries. So we have legal descriptions of them and they're recorded.
That's one of the things I want to talk to you about afterwards, about the survey. We just don't want any problems thrown in your lap is all.
Well, the correction lines are right there, or they're a mile south, 30. So they start right at Leroy Section 2. They're right up there in that corner, the correction lines for the township, or whatever. You know, like you go south of Benton here, and there's a hog setup on the right, on the left, and then you pop this hill, you go over a creek, and then there's a jog in the road. That's a correction line. And those correction lines are right there by that cemetery. And the same people own the ground on both sides of the road. So if there is a problem, we could probably keep that road to the east and not disturb that cemetery. Just it's possible to do without much trouble. You just have to move the correction line further south, but it's the same landowner on both sides of the road, so it's not that big a deal. Well, I shouldn't say it's not that big a deal, but.
So you're looking at having some surveying done of all the cemeteries in the county, obviously.
The pioneer ones.
The pioneer cemeteries, yes. It'd probably be a good idea to start in this vicinity, wouldn't it? So you know exactly where they are.
We would need dimensions, exception out of deed. If that's not in there anymore, it's pretty much gone.
Okay. So
Probably
then,
have a deed that originally created the cemetery.
You should be able to find it upstairs.
So
Take a lot of
that's
digging.
where you start. The problem that you run into is just because you had a cemetery that was, donated land and started out, it was quite common for burials to occur outside of the boundary.
We have a cemetery booking there too. I just had a survey in last week. I don't know if it was the one you contacted from
Hall.
Yeah, and so we did dig, and we went back to like 1850s. I think it was Beale Cemetery. We did not find anything in the transfer book, but we found Beals that own the ground. But sometimes you can, sometimes you can't.
He's working on
Yeah, a couple
Springer
different ones. Yep.
and Bellary.
So he's been in and we've been digging through that stuff with him.
what would be nice to know is when they're widening the road, if it's going to get into the cemetery, of course, that's what we're questioning here, or is it gonna be just the right of way that's going to be part of, hit a corner of the cemetery or something of that nature. Definitely we don't want things just ground to a halt, obviously, and so what's your next step? Once you get surveys, are you looking at doing the ground penetrating radar? What do you
County
suggest?
gives us a little extra money.
What's that?
If the county gives us a little extra money.
The ground penetrating radar, we trying to locate.
Right.
If we already have the bounds and such, we go ahead and survey those in.
I don't know if there's a better deal out there. Some ground penetrating radar would actually solve a lot of problems. But I know the lady in Fairfax just had the Fairfax Cemetery done, and that was $4,400
To have the radar.
to have the radar done.
Sure.
That was a larger cemetery.
It's fairly good size. But they did find graves that weren't marked outside the boundaries.
Well, I think you're gonna have to come up with some numbers,
It's also not uncommon, I'm not saying that will be the case here, but it's not uncommon for the landowner to be, to think they own the cemetery, they don't. To be very defensive and even resistant and refuse to cooperate until they do things like remove a sign.
Right.
If you put another one up, I'll take it down too, type of thing. So Unfortunately, I'm kind of hedging my words here on purpose, because I don't want to say too much. They can be fraught with litigation. That's okay, we specialize in that.
Is there no records of how many burials were there or anything?
We have the names of half a dozen or 9 or something like that,
But they only moved 3?
that we know of.
That we know of. I have been told that 17 seems to be a number that sticks in my head.
The moving of the burial will be done by the family. They have to pay for it. So only the families in the locale will probably pay for their family members to move. And if the other family members off in California or whatever, they may not have done anything.
But on the same token, as long as they've been in the ground, there was no vaults like there is now.
No, not
There was
right
just
then.
a pine box.
Right.
And I'm on a cemetery to take care of a couple of cemeteries myself. And once they hit 100 years old, you won't find nothing. I mean, if you're lucky, you might find a ring. Understand? It'll be something metal. As for bones or anything, forget it. You won't find it.
That kind of depends. It depends on, wetness of the ground, how deep they were buried, things like that. We actually had back in the mid to late 90s, we had a Pioneer Cemetery. We believe this is what happened. We had a skull show up in the middle of a cornfield, the farmer's field, and there's, stones thrown from a Pioneer Cemetery that wasn't being maintained, and the thought process was something burrowed down and brought something back up. So it just kind of depends. When they move a grave, sometimes there'll be a residue, and they have a term for that that's left from the decaying process. They'll actually get in there and scoop that out and move that. The long and the short of it is, this isn't going to be a quick process, and you don't want to do anything that disrupts the cemetery.
Cemeteries, Victorian era cemeteries, there was varying materials that caskets were made out of. Wood, of course, was a popular one, but then there was also a lot of cast iron caskets that folded together and had a window in them. And they were lead lined. So, and then there's some of them that were copper. There were copper caskets. So there might, depending on how much the family wanted to spend when they buried their loved one, there might be remnants of, say, a cast iron coffin. In that case, it would probably still be pretty well preserved. Because those were very heavy, very thick.
As you probably know, Highway 30 was the main road between Chicago and the West Coast. And in the 1800s, there were a lot of people that died. They just did, and they were buried. If people were moving, they had to be buried in some place, and they buried them and kept on moving.
Oh, yeah, there's, it'd be mind-boggling how many bodies are buried and you don't know about. Families buried their family, on their farm. It's like Gunsmoke, you bury them along the way after you know.
I was told years ago by someone involved in pioneer cemeteries that in the late 1800s you still had small bands of Native Americans that were essentially without a home, moving around, and if one of their people passed, they wouldn't be allowed usually to bury within the cemetery, so they'd be one of the ones or groups that were buried just outside of the cemetery boundary.
Here's one of those in Benton County, except they put the road through the cemetery.
Well, the road curves a little bit to kind of go around the edge of it. I don't think it's part of that.
Yeah.
They call it Indian Cemetery, but I think there's only one Native American there.
How much widening do you need?
That's a Myron question. It really is. You guys haven't talked to the
I
county?
I've called Myron's office twice.
Okay.
And I've never gotten a phone call back. I don't know if he doesn't like my looks or what.
He will be here at 10:10 today. If you're still available, I would probably hang around. May be very good to shed light on this.
It's kind of interesting. Highway 30 went to Belle Plaine,
Mm-hmm.
and if you look in the spring, well, how I know where it went is I follow the cemeteries. You can follow the cemeteries to follow where people went when there were no fences or no roads.
Mhm.
And you get across Prairie Creek, it starts working south.
Right.
You can actually see the tracks in the ground yet, if you know what you're looking for.
Oh yeah, there was a stagecoach station just on this side of the county line north of Walford. I know we owned the place and it burned down. Some kids burned it down, but when the frost is just right, you can still see them tracks heading southwest.
Which is part of the reason why, like, the ground penetrating radar still shows stuff, even though you can't pick it, anything with your eye.
Mhm.
You know, just even depressions, you know, that the soil has been disturbed, things like that.
You got a kind of rough idea where the cemetery's supposed to be at?
Oh yeah,
You do?
oh yeah. We could walk you right to it. We could walk you right in the middle of it.
On that 1950 aerial, up in the
First page.
northeast corner, you can kind of see a
Oh,
light
50.
area where there's stones and such. Can you make that out?
I don't ever remember trees or anything being in that section. You?
No, it was all gone before I,
Well, Steve Meyer from Blairstown said that from the northeast corner, that light colored area there, that's where the cemetery is. That's where the stones are.
so that was clear up by the road.
Mm-hmm. Right on the corner.
Yeah, pretty much right by the fence.
But the sign is further south. The sign, that's on the fence there now is probably down where those trees are. It's further south.
If you go down to Blairstown Blacktop, where that corner is, you'll see 2 4x4s sticking out of the ground along the fence line in the right of way, and that's where that Stringtown Cemetery sign was.
What did the sign say?
Stringtown Cemetery, hallowed ground.
We have some stuff to talk about.
Yeah, and Tiedemann told me with his own house, I took it down.
Did you ever talk to Bob Olin?
Yeah, we talked, Brenda
Brendan Clint.
and Clint,
Yeah, they called me and I told them to go talk to him.
and that's what they went down and talked to him for quite a while.
Yeah.
And he pretty much verified what
Okay.
happened.
I got another name I could give you, but I don't wanna do it over the internet, so.
Yeah.
As far as your surveying, have you got estimates, and is that in your budget?
The estimate, we have estimates, the estimate is barely within our budget. And when we do that, we won't have much left to go out and do what we do, do the repairs. and that kind of-
2,500?
26. I'm gonna see if I can get him to sharpen his pencil a little bit better. Plead our case, give our cause.
I think you're gonna have to come back to us with some most definite numbers and maybe an estimate for this ground penetration radar. And again, I highly recommend, if you've not been able to get a hold of Myron, you know where he'll be at 10:10
Not only that, I know where he lives.
There you go. Okay.
What's planted there,
When we leave, Tina wants you to stop in my office before you leave.
what's planted there this spring?
What's that?
What's planted there, beans?
I think it is, but I'm
I
not
don't
sure.
know. I've been by there for a while.
Because really you won't be able to do anything till the crops are out.
Right.
Well, yeah.
And even then, how's that work if the owner, which I know them real well, they say, no, stay out. How? That's gonna be something that you'd have to deal with, right?
We've dealt with that before. I don't wanna say what I'm gonna do,
Well, it looks like
but we always try to be nice about it.
It looks like an Iowa code,
Oh, yeah.
according to this.
The landowner doesn't actually own it. If it's like I think it was, where somebody granted the cemetery through a deed, way back when, there's no adverse possession against a cemetery. You think of like boundary acquisitions and things like that, after 10 years of this or that, it doesn't apply against the cemetery.
But don't you think there should be upstairs, or not upstairs, downstairs, a deed?
Oh, I'm sure they have one. I'm sure these guys actually probably have a copy of it.
Some of them are hard to find now, like
Yes.
I said, they're
Yeah.
so old, you
Yes.
have to really dig.
Because I know, I was a township trustee at El Dorado, and at the 21830 junction where the highway
Where
crap's
the
going
bean
on
pot
right
was?
now. Yeah, okay, that's called Prairie Lutheran, and of course, growing up as a kid, it was always called the Thompson Cemetery, because there was more Thompsons buried there than anything. And that was kind of the same deal. I went and done the looking for, I don't know how many days I spent downstairs here, and I found the deed to that. Now, same way, the cemetery, or the church is gone, and the township trustees take care of it, but I got the books and everything for that cemetery. How many people were buried there when they died.
That's kind of what this fella from Hall and Hall's doing. 'Cause he was up here last week for a couple hours, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Thursday for sure, and then he comes back and forth email on Friday.
So just a question, we're gonna do some restoration on Ermey Cemetery Saturday. That's in Monroe Township. Do you know the trustees?
I can get you some
She could
names.
tell you.
Contact them, see if they wanna come out, help out, or, okay.
You're going across, aren't you? Gina could probably get you that.
If we can print out that list for you.
Okay.
I'll do it right now, so it'll be over there.
Do you not know that? We're gonna work at Ermey Cemetery Saturday.
Yes.
Okay.
Brenda told me about
What do you do about these cemeteries that have one grave? And they're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, these guys have a saying, the easiest cemetery in the world to maintain is the one grave cemetery.
I can tell you of an instance where they thought there was one grave in a cemetery, just down south of Amana there by Homestead. And they always said there was one grave there that belonged to a little girl that died on a wagon train. They got to digging around in there, there's 7. So sometimes the one grave isn't always the case.
Kind
Yeah,
of do a list of all the townships.
So I know of a couple places where there was supposedly one grave, and for decades, they never farmed it, but it's being farmed over now. I mean,
well, that's like that Spring Cemetery south of Watkins. Kaylee's bought the farm, and the county helped them tear the stones out. They buried them under the roadbed. And we know how many graves are in there. I got a pretty good idea because Joseph Springer was the first master of the Masonic Lodge in Norway. I'm the secretary of that lodge. And we've got those records. All of Springer's
What
were
cemetery
Masons.
was that?
South of Watkins,
Does it have a name?
Springer Cemetery. Joseph Springer's house was the first Masonic lodge. That's why the lodge is called St. Clair Lodge, but it's in Norway. Because it was in St. Clair Township.
you know, it's interesting, we've got relatives that live out in California, and that's one of the things they do, is come up back, when they come back, is they scout cemeteries, figure out what's going on. I mean, we don't, as we live here and we've grown up here, we see all this, but we don't really pay much attention compared to what they do. I mean, they'll spend days at it.
The biggest problem, the records in them days were bad.
Scanned.
I mean, there is some records, but you gotta hunt for them, and it's not.
A lot of the church cemeteries had pretty good records, but then when the church, disbands in 1915, somebody has those records, and then where did they end up?
Right.
The cemetery by me that I'm in charge of there, the first 8 rows, everything's wrote down in German. I'm screwed. If somebody comes, like you said, once they investigate somebody that's been buried there in the 1830, 1840, I gotta find somebody that speaks German. Well, the people that I knew that could read and speak it, I'm taking care of them. They're under the ground out there.
Well, it depends on if they
Got a
were,
name for
if
it.
it was in
Yeah.
High German or Low German. See, the Schultzes, my great grandfather was High German, but my great grandmother was Low German. And Low Germans were subservient, by the way. Well, like that Beller Eden Cemetery over there by Shellsburg, the church that was there is part of this Lutheran church here in town, and they moved it up here. Was that Bethlehem Church when you come into town? The church was moved there, and then that big church built, gradually built around. So somewhere in there's the walls of that old original church. But they don't have records for that cemetery.
Well, that's my homework. And thank you for making us aware of this, and definitely get a hold of Myron.
I live just west of Walford. I know where he lived.
Okay.
It was my understanding, and I don't know why, but I just assumed that road was not gonna interfere with the cemetery. Because the cemetery was further back from the road, but that could be completely wrong.
I don't think that's the case, unfortunately.
That's where the ground penetrating radar would come in handy if we were allowed to do it.
You almost think that a project like this, where you got a roadway that's, potentially impinging upon a cemetery, would free up funds from secondary roads budget to do some of this stuff. It's necessary for the maintenance of.
I agree with Rick. Get a price.
I think that area right there in Leroy Township, I don't know if you go north on the road to Van Horn, they are making exceptions for farmsteads that are there currently. They're putting bricks up or whatever. Something like that could be done, or the road could be moved to the east because of that correction line.
That cattle farm up there, Bland, used to be the Hennings place. That was the original Schultz home farm. And I know my grandpa's Aunt Clara used to talk about there being a cemetery there. But there was a couple Schultzes buried in that cemetery.
And they're talking at the farmstead, not at the cemetery that's east
No.
of that.
Where the rest of them are all buried. She swore up and down till the day she died. And she was sharp right to the end.
I bet we're related.
What's that?
I bet we're related.
Well, cousin Tracy.
Stephen, you'll do anything for
Yeah.
the vote.
Oh, he hasn't seen me do my baby kissing.
Yeah,
I campaigned pretty hard for Florence Township. Did you know Billy Clark?
I know of my eye.
Bill, well, did you know Henry, the town drunk in Van Horn? That was my great grandpa. He lived, when they had the Farm Progress show and they built that house there, he lived in that old ramshackle house where that prefab is.
Okay.
And Uncle Bill, there was Bill and Frank. But we'll talk sometime.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we need to stay on track here. So, thank you,
Gentlemen.
Roy. Thank you, Wayne.
Yeah, thanks for letting us in.
You know, upstairs.
Yeah, we will talk to those folks.
Okay. I'll see you later upstairs.
Okay, I should be around.
Everybody initial that?
Yes, I believe so.
Put it over here before we lose it.
You signed it, right?
Get pencil, but it ain't get in.
Pass these, Tracy, I don't know if this is for, to do with them. I got something from, the AS over there, USDA,
What about it?
corn and soybeans, so I don't know if that's for us. You might know what it is.
Oh, that's on the red and brown.
those looked over, then let's go to item 8.
So if you want Myron here for that.
8, we could. I thought we got an answer last week. Well, let's jump forward. Any reports?
Had landfill last week.
Okay.
Everything's going real good, I guess. Like I told you before, they got a new packer. They're in the process now of gonna drill more wells in there, and what they're gonna try to do, or their long-range plan is they're gonna try to get the whole 120 acres counted as a landfill. The main reason they wanna do that right now is because they don't want anybody, if it's known by the state as a landfill, the whole 120 acres, there ain't nobody can build a house next to the property. Right now, somebody could build a house right next to the 80 acres that's being farmed right now, and then they could not in turn have a landfill.
Has to be so far.
Correct.
Sure.
I don't know what the distance is to
Yeah.
the DNR. So that's one of the deals they're in a it'll take a couple of years by the time, because like the same thing what they're doing here after they do the well or ground test, and then they gotta do a archaeological test, make sure they ain't buried there, whatever. They got a haul truck now. It's being put together. They bought a county truck from the county for $8,900, so that kind of helped both ways. It helped with the landfill owning a truck now to put this tank on that I helped get from Southern Iowa, and now they'll be able to haul their own wastewater out of the lagoon to either Van Horn or Belle Plaine.
For processing.
Yes, yes, because otherwise that's one of the biggest expenses they got now is,
That's a straight truck. Where they've been using the tractor trailer.
no, they've been hiring it now.
Well, correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Landfill has not been hauling it.
No, they've been
Then-
subbing that out.
Correct.
Now I'll do it internally, so.
You see them down there, loading it up constantly. Yeah. They're gonna have to make more trips, I presume.
Well, they got a bigger tank than what the truck can hold, so. Well, legally, yeah.
Fill it.
Yeah,
Well, that becomes a problem too, unless it's baffled.
it's got baffled.
Yeah, but that still isn't foolproof.
Yeah. I guess that's about it. And I got 3 Zoom meetings on Thursday, so.
I understand. Yeah.
I got meetings the rest of the week too, so I don't have anything to report really. On
fine.
farmsteads for the landfill, there are some close. There's one to the south, and I think there's one to the north.
To the west. Right on Curve.
I think I should wait for the turn on this.
Yeah.
That's where they can dig the dirt out.
Maybe.
Understand? Take the dirt, they can't make land go there. They can bury. What part of the
We have 15 minutes. Do you need a break?
I'm good, I'm working on levies right now.
And, you wanna jump to number 8?
Well, I asked that.
I didn't
and-
know if you wanted Myron, because you told me to put
Oh,
it on when
okay,
Myron
yeah,
was here.
or,
Yeah, and we might as well hold off for Myron on my, item 2, old business.
yep.
So,
Yeah, and I apologize for that item that should have been on there. For the field.
I don't recall, what's that about?
I think it was from the last year,
I think they were wanting to use the service center.
and sometimes when we make our new agendas,
Okay.
I'll just tweak them to the dates, it's quicker,
Okay.
but. I don't, it's all coming for the number 11. I did talk to Jansen's with the weather permitting, but they should be finishing up here pretty soon.
Looks good from
Yeah.
what I seen this
So
morning.
she wants somebody to either go up in the lift again and look at their work and give our final approval. And then they'll do one final power washing and rake the gravel all around so it looks nice.
Side note, do you still think we need that drop box, big one out
I
here?
think so. I think
Okay.
people are utilizing it more. I do have a couple pulled up here if you wanna look
Okay.
at some,
Yeah,
cause some
I
other counties.
looked at some over the weekend.
Yep, I have some pulled up from other counties, what they did, so, some are 800, some are, they vary, but we wanna be able to cement it down probably so it stays put. Yeah, it's actually been kinda nice having that awning too. Cause
That's
the
what I was
rain,
Isn't it
thinking,
nice?
cause people are standing out there,
Yeah.
waiting for their appointments and, so that might be something too if this continues.
Now, the deputies told me this morning that the appointments, they said, is working out really well.
I thought maybe next week we'll put on there an update again about the COVID, because I don't know how long you want to continue that way, if we're gonna just open the doors.
Well, for the appointments, I figured, I myself told Melinda we'll go at least 60 days
Okay.
for the Benton County residents.
Right.
That's the way I felt.
Yes. I know, between the two offices, like somebody might come in for the recorder and ATV and then they need to register their trailer. Well, if they didn't have an appointment, there's kind of been some miscommunicating there. Because they don't wanna have walk-ins, but if somebody's driving here to do one or the other, so we just need to communicate better that they need an appointment for the other too.
So if we continue the appointments 60 days for county residents only,
Into August.
and we're gonna go on beyond that, if we go beyond that. Once Jansen's are done, their temporary,
Awning will be gone.
well, that was there so that it would drop down on residents
Well, no, yeah, when they were water spraying.
while we're working there.
We can probably
And our
talk
drop
to
boxes.
Well, that's real true, it just,
By that time, we'll have the new drop box out.
Right, but it's still been nice when people
But
are standing out in the
when
weather.
people are standing out there, if it's rainy, that type of thing, if they're sitting in their cars, that's quite a ways, for,
If you don't care for the looks, I'm sure Randy, he's got enough scaffolding, he can let it lay there.
yeah, well, I'm just wondering if we could maybe rent something that's a little nicer.
You wouldn't want something to
Well,
blow
yeah,
away
I
the
look
wind
at it.
either. Yeah, agreed.
In August, something's gotta change. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
Well, it's got to. I mean, otherwise, I know two of the places that I do business with, they're not gonna open up, they're done. They threw in the towel.
I think there's some smaller businesses that are doing the same.
Well, some of this stuff was a little tough to deal with. If you are the SBA, if you are a sole proprietor, you don't qualify. You have to have a partner.
For the small business loan. I thought that one from Kate, it was sending us some of
I
them.
was gonna say, I know farmers that qualify for
Yeah.
that. Their kids got money. They were bouncing me, I didn't apply. No.
Well, again, it's one of those that the state was one way, the SBA is another.
Don't you still have to pay those back though too?
Well, it didn't sound
Some
like
of
it.
them you do,
Some
some
I was
don't.
gonna say what they got.
Because some of those small business loans, I know they get a certain amount and I think they have to pay it back after things get.
loans.
Well, and then
secure.
they changed the parameters. It was 75% had to be for employee wages, the other 25 could be used for rents or
Expenses.
equipment type payments, et cetera. And they changed it to a 60-40 ratio. So,
You take like the Blairstown Cafe, That was just sold and reopened, and people aren't going in there.
I was in there Friday night.
Tracy.
I
This
mean-
one's like 260. There's a few different ones.
260?
That one is, but if you look at some of the different ones, and then here's a $900 one. That one you can cement the holes. So it's just a few of the
I
different
was
ones.
thinking like the one you just had,
That cheaper one.
that one. 256, but
That
what's
one
the
looks like.
size?
Does it top
This is
door
on
pull
Amazon.
down or something?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
Yeah, it shows you pictures here.
yeah, that
So you
concerns me with garbage.
That's more for mail. We just want like one.
You just need a slot, don't you?
Mhm. That's a little different, but. This is
It's
just what
just
some of
like
the other
that.
ones have been using. So they're all going in the same route we are, so.
You know, it's almost like if you had the drop box over here at the post office, where it's got the wider slot where you pull up with your car, you know, that would alleviate a lot of trash being dumped in it.
Right. But I think we talked about putting on the other side of that one, because that's incoming mail from the post office on the other one.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want them to put it in the mail.
Correct. Wonder if you can get something like that
So,
with the,
yeah,
the drive up type slot.
I was talking yesterday, I was on a conference call with our District 6 and the Secretary of State. Some counties had drive-through polling locations. During election day, they'd have them outside, but they'd like utilize the fire station and have the doors pulled up, and people would pull in. They'd assist them, get them filling out their forms, and then they'd go vote, stick it in the machine, and drive off. They're trying to see what we need for November with that legislation changes. We don't have that 40-day window now, it's back down to 29.
Why is there 4 sheets?
I don't know, those
They're
come down to
two-
the treasurer,
they're
so
two double, they're the same numbers.
Yeah.
they were mailed to Melinda, so I didn't know if you needed anything.
Should be the tenant, cause he's the one that's gonna sign up. But they only wasn't signed up in 19 according to that, the PLC,
Mm-hmm.
so I should be full.
Mail that to him or call him?
Well, if he's gonna sign up for the program, I mean, he's still got time yet.
Oh, that's just what it's telling us,
Yeah.
since we're the actual landlord.
Right. And the problem is, problem, but,
May want to make him aware.
yeah, you could.
It isn't going to hurt anything.
No.
And it's just good
Good-
relationships.
Yeah, communications, with
Yeah.
especially what happened
Because,
Exactly.
you can't go in the office.
there.
No
Oh, okay.
appointments, none, it's all done by
I
mail.
don't think I have their email, but I have their address. So if you want, I can make some copies and send it.
That'd be wise. Thank you.
And it's 2 copies of what that is. You could actually mail him one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They're double, they're both the same when you look at the numbers.
so of 19 and 20,
Mm-hmm,
2 different years.
mm-hmm.
I don't know how they can have deadlines if you can't get into their office.
I do it electronically, maybe. Do they let you sign and scan to them?
I don't know. Right now, it's all snail mail.
Maybe they have a Dropbox too that you have to.
No, they don't, but I mean, like the way I did it here a couple weeks ago, of course, I know all the gals. You know, I just sat in a pickup and I just went in, brought it out, set it on the curb. I got on the pickup, picked it up, signed it, set it back on the curb, and they grabbed it and went back in. In the story.
So have you guys tried the new thermometers?
I looked at them, that's as far as I went.
They work pretty slick, other than like if somebody is, like those hot days last week. So say, for example, somebody's been standing out there and the sun's hitting them. You have to let it, the alarm will go off.
Yeah.
It's like 99.8,
Yeah,
just on the verge. And then you just gotta let them cool down a bit and then redo it again. So you can either put your wrist up to it, and it's pretty less invasive for our
Of course.
So we have one of those at the service center too.
yeah, I know, I seen that over
Yeah.
there, that's the one I really took a look at, because yesterday when I stopped, there was, only one was there, was the gals at the DHS, and then, Tony. Sarah was not there, and Mona was not there.
We have that decap thing on the agenda next week, but at this time I told Mindy and Drew, so I didn't have enough time to plan for having it be a county employee.
Yeah.
We would have had to know that was coming down the pipeline.
Good morning, Myron.
Morning. Did you stand that sign up on your own?
The way it was raining yesterday, no way.
Got a message back from the DOT today. One of the bigwigs said, when he sent a guy out there, it was up. So somebody else must have stood up.
I said, I went by it. When I went back from Benton after I called you, 10:45, it was still down and on the shoulder, and the sandbags were on 218 yet.
Randy noticed it on the way to work in the morning and asked me if I had a number, and then I got sidetracked, and then you called me. I'm like, I better stop getting sidetracked and just make that call. So,
It was up this morning when I went by.
yeah, I noticed.
We had a lot of flash flooding yesterday, didn't we? To do it.
You're talking about that sign on 218?
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy putting sandbags on it when I came.
You know, orange pickup. Yeah, he pulled up there. I was right behind him. But it was
A few
already up.
places, not a lot.
Some of those
Some places
are
have worked
heavy.
kids to go over when you get that. anyway, so.
Mm-hmm. You wanna start on that? Let him get his stuff
Yeah,
done.
let's do his. He's on for 10:10. Then we'll pounce on him, right?
He's gotta go back to Zoom. Phone conference.
You said that last week, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, was it last week or the week before? I had a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Bridge projects. The bridge, 75th and 16th Avenue north of Luzerne is B44, is one of those plans that we just talked about signing last week or the week before. Pickard owns on one side of that project and EDK Farms owns on the other side. Needed a temporary and a permanent easement for both of them, and got those here in the last week, 10 days, so I have purchase agreements. Let's start with Randy and Kelly Pickard. Payment for $960 entails 0.11 acres of permanent easement and 0.1 acres of temporary easement. The breakdown is $880 for the permanent and $80 for the temporary.
You already signed it?
Randy and Kelly have signed it, yes.
Okay. Make a motion to approve it.
Second?
Motion by Tracy and seconded by Gary to approve the purchase agreement for temporary and permanent easements for the Pickard, is that?
Yeah.
Okay. With Pickards, all right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Bring your stamp or we'll leave it here.
I did.
She loved it. Look at that.
Get a lot of traffic these days. So, Pretty safe over here.
I forgot about his, let it lapse.
Oh, really? That's only good for 3 years. It's kind of an odd amount. I think it would be 2 or 4, but.
But it didn't take but a week or two, I think, with Kate's office to get that reinstated.
There, we keep those numbers on there. You can go ahead and keep this one.
Okay.
The other side of the road for that same bridge is EDK Farms. That amount is $864. The permanent easement is 0.1 acres. The temporary easement is 0.08 acres. That breakdown is that would be $800 or $800 for the permanent and $64 for the temporary.
Who's that one with?
EDK, letter E, letter D, letter K, Farms, LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Tracy made the motion to approve that purchase agreement for temporary and permanent easements with EDK Farms LLC. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. I see Gary seconded.
Be a Kinsel family, I guess, right? If I'm saying that right. It's going to Doris's place.
Might want to, I'll just.
Should be.
They actually made a mistake, I think, on their signature page and got hold of Ben and asked him to get a new one. I don't remember if it's that one or another one.
You have the resolution there?
We got actually one more bridge location.
Oh, okay.
Those two actually took care of bullet number 1.
Okay.
Bullet number 2 is the bridge, 30th Avenue Drive, over here in section 4 of Canton. For the most part, with what we learned 2 years ago, I think, with putting that bridge in, that intersection there has a bigger county easement, but we still needed some temporary from Schmieke's. Kyle was taking care of that for us on that piece. So there is the acreage, this is pretty small. But $184 for a temporary easement.
So moved.
Second.
But you've got on there permanent also.
No, it should be just temporary, doesn't it?
It says this is for Canton Township.
This is temporary, permanent.
This is temporary and permanent, so
Oh.
that's fine.
So it's just permanent?
Just temporary.
Just temporary, so scratch the permanent.
Right.
Okay. All right, Gary made the motion and Tracy seconded to approve that temporary purchase agreement easement. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
Oh, my mistake. Trying to cut and paste quickly on a Monday morning. The important thing was getting it on the agenda. resolution wise, and I just emailed that to Haley before I walked over here. Walked out here, drove here, but Grant Whitmer, who is a mechanic in the shop, will have been employed with Benton County a year from tomorrow. So with the union contract and the way things are structured with that, there's a pay increase, wage base increase, as well as a classification change. So he will be making $22.42 effective tomorrow, and we'll have a classification of 5D.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Gary made the motion to approve the wage and classification change for Grant Whitmer, and Tracy seconded, and this is by resolution.
Beershank, aye.
Seaman, aye.
And Primer, aye.
East Central REC has submitted a utility permit to bore under the road on 58th Street, the pavement out north of Benton. Larry Crucial's boy is building a new house, so they need to run power under the road to service that.
Commonly known as the highway. So moved.
Second.
Tracy made the motion, Gary seconded to approve the utility permit for East Central Iowa REC in Taylor Township. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Sir.
Bridges are a popular discussion. We've talked about before, but North Desert, between D65 and D65, the Big Wolf Creek Bridge is being developed, designed for a replacement structure, secured some special state funding. A year and a half ago, was it now, or something, I think, that was gonna pay, will pay for 80% of the project up to $2 million. The project's estimated at 2.4 at the moment. We'll use swap funding to pick up the balance. Tama County will pick up half of that swap difference. Benton County will do the other half of that. So, looking to get that end of the cycle to be bid on for contractors later this fall for next construction year project. So I need the board's signatures on this title sheet so I can get it over to Tama County and get their signatures also.
Motion to approve
Probably.
signing of.
Probably wouldn't hurt, say the new bridge is gonna be about the same length as the old one, but we're gonna go to 40 feet wide instead of 30. I know all of the bridges, as you continue north into Waterloo, are all 40-foot wide, and the two boxes that we did north of there, I think were wide enough to accommodate that pavement width, or that roadway width also.
So moved.
So motion to approve signing of this. Okay. Tracy made the motion, Gary seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's gotta go, guys. Anything else, sir?
That is all that I have, I think.
Well, don't run away.
Not running away, I heard a question, I seen the agenda items, so I wasn't sure whether I needed to be up here earlier or whether everything was gonna get asked at this point.
You'll probably be approached by the Pioneer Board, but
Well, I had a phone call, I know, a couple months ago or 6 weeks ago that I hadn't got back to.
you need to have a copy of this because they are questioning the road expansion north of Blairstown to
Mm-hmm.
Highway 30, that might actually hit a cemetery.
Okay.
So
It's not marked.
it's currently being farmed over.
Before the field fence was taken out, I think there was a Pioneer Cemetery name hanging on that fence.
Yes, there was, and the farmer's got it in his crop.
And he also stated that if it was put up again, he would take it down. So that's where that's at. But they are going to, meaning the Pioneer Board's going to get some estimates for survey and estimates for ground penetrating radar. Hopefully the expansion wouldn't hit it.
Mm-hmm.
That if it's anything, it might be in the right of way, but time will tell, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So the question to you, how's your funds? This being a secondary road project, would this fall under any of that for funding, to do the survey, to have any of the radar expense covered?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that a little bit, whether that is, certainly if there's a cemetery or, known or unknown, and even on projects with particularly unknown things when you unearth things, that things need to halt at that location and person needs to find out what's going on, and those costs tend to get added to a project that are covered under that. When things are known ahead of time and the research that goes into whether that qualifies for that same pool of money or not, it's a question, might need to ask a couple questions to make sure.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the time delay would be quite costly as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
How wide are you thinking of adding on to the?
My plan was to try to keep the permanent right-of-way limited to 50 feet from the 33 that we have right now. In some areas where the field is higher than the road, I was looking to do a temporary easement back 10 to 15 feet and try to cut that down, strip topsoil down, strip that down, and put the topsoil back to try to keep the permanent purchase to 50 feet. Not wanting to take any more farm production ground out of production than we need to there. But, with this type of situation, if it was close to the road, that would have been back in the era when 20 foot, or the 30 foot.
well, it may be if that 8.5 feet on each side, if that could be shifted or what may happen.
When I seen it on the agenda, I was starting to look at some old plans that I have and trying to figure out if there's anything identified on that it doesn't appear to be, not 1875 vintage, if that's when it was established, but a lot of times the plans that we have on roadways that were surveyed in the 20s and the 30s capture some of that older historical stuff.
Right.
Well, that's township line there,
Mm-hmm.
mile south.
Yep.
And 3 sides of the intersection are owned by the same people. Pat's on the northeast, southeast, and where this cemetery would be.
So if we can avoid the cemetery,
I mean, if it's
That's-
concentrated in the corner, it makes it easier to work around it than it is.
there's a 1950 aerial, I think it's my 3rd page or something like that. And so,
The cemetery's up in the corner.
yeah, that shaded part, light area.
So he may have called on my birthday is why I wasn't in, and I just hadn't got back to him with these bridges cramming hard. I haven't been back working on this as hard, and even with the road use fund being down a little bit, and we're moving as fast with this.
Yeah. And that, they're gonna get the estimates, so we'll
Mhm.
see what the costs are gonna be. Okay. Tracy, you wanna go next?
Alright. I got this last week about the Watkins, the trees.
Right?
According to the assessor, when he looks at the lots and all that, them trees are on county property. That is a legalized alley that the county owns, it's recorded. So, I don't know what the next step is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my opinion, you guys are not in the tree trimming business.
Right.
I think you'd be better off hiring it done.
We're not, like say.
And now we
We
can't
wouldn't
take
have
it south of
planned.
Watkins and put it in the ditch and burn it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone that needs firewood?
That I don't know. But it still has to be taken down.
You'd almost have to be limbed down because
Yes,
it's right next to
right.
the power line. I
Yes.
drove by it this morning on the way to work, and
Yeah.
you know, they're
It's
having
food.
thought a couple things between last week and this week, you know, that no, we're not. I mean, we've taken trees down in the right of way where they're, well, after they've fallen down or where they, particularly on roadways that we're using, those branches or trees hanging over the roadway tend to create a canopy, and you don't get sunlight in there, and they cause winter problems.
Not much of a canopy on these.
No, where they're an immediate need, you know, where things have, where property owners may have an immediate need that may not accommodate our schedule sometimes. Property owners have asked for permission or, you know, a right-of-way permit to go do what they need to in some areas. You know, with the trees on some
It's dead, isn't it?
established right-of-ways that, whether they're volunteers or replace planted there, and don't have a direct hindrance to the road department, are they still the road department's responsibility to remove, or are they just the party that somebody has to have permission to do something with them if somebody doesn't like where they're at?
From what I recall, they're pretty bare standing dead
Yeah,
trees
they're-
that Alliant has
Has done some
trimmed
trim.
one side. And if they do come down, it's probably gonna take their lines down.
It
What,
falls that way. Like I say, I don't know if they cut them short enough that they fall underneath their line or not. Didn't look at that
I didn't think they were, because they look pretty tall.
They trimmed that one close. Down there.
And so my question is, if they toppled over in a windstorm, what are we gonna hit? Looks like they could hit a building there,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
here. So,
Anyway, that's the question. I know you guys are not into that. It would be smarter, like I said, to get somebody in there. And then, like you said, maybe there is somebody that burns firewood that
Mm-hmm.
if they just drop it and then,
Let them clean it up.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's gonna be a
They're
lot of
big.
trees go bad, or go by the wayside.
I bet there'd be you'd find multiple people probably that would be interested in
Willing to
firewood.
clean it up.
Mhm.
Well, if it's all right with you, I'll get a bid from Mark Hupfield from Mill Plain, just a bid.
Mhm.
And then I'll inquire in Watkins there to see if there is somebody that's a wood burner would be interested in cleaning it up.
So what's the concern? I understand the bank president contacted you. What's his concern? There's 3 dead trees,
Yeah,
okay, and that they're causing a hazard.
well, they could fall down like they did on the power lines right now already. Okay, then when they fell down, the residents, of course, well, IE cleaned them up before, but if they fall down and hit, if there's a garage that's close to it, okay, who's gonna pay for the garage? You know, because it's the county's trees.
Well, if a tree falls on my house, whether it's city or personal, my insurance usually covers the damage, and I have a deductible. That's why I carry property insurance.
True, but on the same token that you can say, well, that's a dead tree, knew it was gonna fall down.
If it ended up as a lawsuit.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know that if it's a $500 deductible that somebody's gonna spend a lot of money on attorney fees, but including insurance companies. So, but doesn't hurt to get pricing.
Okay.
My turn. We're just going around the room here. Shellsburg. Garbage is just rampant down there. And you can have these photos, not that you really want them. And the neighbor was texting me, and, you know, his recommendation is to put up some fake security cameras or live security cameras and have the gentleman there at the county shop keep a close eye on things and perhaps even pick up the garbage that's blowing. That's his concern, is the garbage blowing onto his property. I don't know. This is not recycled, this is garbage. So this doesn't end up going to a recycling center, this goes to a landfill. And so I'm not sure that we've got the right equipment there. Maybe it should just be a dumpster. You know, maybe we ought to take it out. I don't know. He thinks it needs dumped Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That's his recommendation via my text messages back and forth. So I said, well, the city of Shellsburg wants nothing to do with it. And they don't believe that it's any of their residents that are putting the garbage out there. So I don't know. As far as actual recycle, they don't believe, meaning Shellsburg doesn't believe that their businesses are the ones that are stuffing the cardboard in there either. Well, I know locally, a lot of businesses use recycle here as well. You know, whether they're, and this is meant for county residents, but how do you separate it? So, I don't know a good solution.
From that standpoint, that's why 90% of it, or 10% of it is paid out of general basic, 90% of it is paid out of world basic, because there was some thought, concern, I guess, of business or town residents using it for whatever reason, and so did not when the county was paying for that and setting it up, he set that up in 2010.
Well, do we need to have a recycle, which we already have, plus a dumpster? Because they're dumping it now, and somebody's gotta pick it up. You know, I'm not in favor of that, but, you know, I'm not in favor of this either. So, I don't know what to do, guys. What would the landfill do?
Get rid of it.
Exactly. Yeah, and if it is something that benefits the citizens of Shellisburg, maybe they would put one in.
Yeah, well, see, I'm totally against putting a dumpster there because you will get.
Oh, I get it.
You know what I
I totally understand.
To me, that's not an option, so.
Uh,
Then I'm
different-
thinking, you know, the recycling costs the county, the taxpayers, extra money to recycle right now, today. And then to buy a camera or even a fake camera to set up there to watch garbage. You know, the container,
Well,
you know what I
it's
mean?
not so much to watch the garbage, it's to watch the individuals that are putting garbage there.
Yes, but,
That's the gist of it.
so we're got a losing proposition and we're gonna spend more money for a second losing proposition.
Probably ask Ron, he's got some temporary ones. Maybe
Just-
they
Just
put
get
it
it
up for a
out.
little bit.
Well, I suggested that to this individual and he said he really hated to see it leave. Wow. Yet, he's the one picking the garbage up off of his property because it's blowing over there. He thinks it's, he said good people are using it responsibly. That's what he said, and I'm sure that is true. It's ones that are not using it responsibly. As we all know, a few spoil it for all. And so, I don't know, we got a problem, how do we fix it? If it's board action, then we need board action. Is that what it takes, board action? To
What's
fix
your
it?
feelings on it?
Mixed, I mean, rural county residents were looking for an option for recyclables, you know. I have noticed, it wasn't Shellsburg. In May, I think it was a big dumpster one, and I'm trying to think, was it Watkins that we were assessed fee, contamination fee, that went to the Republic. I do know from the maintainer men, earlier when everything was shut down, there was a lot more garbage in the ditches that they were picking up. It seemed to reduce a fair amount as things were opening back up. That's never gonna end, you know, there's just that group of people that are doing that. Whether this is happening more on the weekends or not, I know the guy there, you know, will go through that during the week sometimes and pick that stuff up. Usually has a pickup there, you know, when the pickup gets full, we haul it to the landfill. The landfill has allowed secondary roads, ditch stuff, at no fee, you know. But there's nobody there 24/7. And even, you know, during the week, other than generally being there in the morning and at quit time, a lot of times the machine's out and that employee's not there throughout the day either.
With the text messages I got was that it was emptied 9 o'clock in the morning and it was already half full that evening. And so it's being utilized a lot, obviously. no matter whether it's city or county residents. And so I like the fact that it's being utilized, and perhaps the reason it didn't have from Republic contamination fees is I'm not sure if they even took it to Republic. I'm not sure I would have taken this to Republic. I'd have probably taken it directly to the landfill, because you know what this is contaminated. So I don't know. It's like a kid. You tell them no, and they keep abusing it. You know, the use of the car. Finally, you take the car away. So until they learn better. So I don't know. I don't have a problem getting rid of it. If it's garbage, it's garbage. If it's recycled, it should be recycled. But you know, how do you police it? And if you do find someone that misuses it, as you've said in the past, it's hard to enforce anything.
Mm-hmm.
So what good does it do to put cameras up, have the extra cost, you know, fake or real? What good's a sign gonna do? I don't have a problem getting rid of it. And if the demand's there, then bring it back. Maybe then the city of Shellisburg would put it at their facility. I don't know. Would that stop county residents from taking it in? I doubt it, but it might stop some garbage.
We don't have nothing up to Urbana, correct?
Correct.
You don't have nothing in Atkins.
No, when the cities all went to curbside collection, all of them asked for the old trailers to be removed from town. And the rural residents still wanted someplace to take their recyclables.
Mm-hmm.
So I offered secondary road sheds where we had them. Watkins being the one place that wasn't a shed, but they were willing to allow it where that was at.
Mhm.
And Belle Plaine location was at the grocery store, and we offered them a monthly host fee, so they kind of monitor that a little bit, and I'm not aware that one's been a problem from that perspective. But
And where else we got?
We've got Benton, Watkins, Belle Plaine.
Van Horn, Shellisburg
Van Horn's got one?
at the shed, yeah.
You're right,
Right on the edge of town.
right.
Garrison Shed has one, and at
Six.
the landfill,
Yeah.
should be 8 locations. Luzerne.
Okay.
Well, is there some place you think we could pay a host fee, like you're doing in Belle Plaine?
We could well, it's been a number of years, but that was, when we were looking for places, ECOG had helped do that. And Belle Plaine was the only one that we had come up with that was willing to accept that, you
Mhm.
know? Now, I don't know if at Shellisburg, if you were to move it to the other side of the creek, that property owner would want a host fee and would accept it there instead or not.
Well, I wonder if, I don't know what the host fee is, it's probably fairly minimal. I wonder if that would entice Shellisburg at all to have it at their maintenance shop.
We pay Country Foods only $50 a month.
Correct.
I would like to talk to Lonnie myself.
Give them a talking. Okay. I got nowhere
Okay.
with the, not necessarily just Lonnie, but with the council. You brought it up before.
What, 150 to $175 per pole to service that, you know?
Yeah.
It's,
3 times a week gets expensive, if that's what
yeah.
he's recommending.
And it, based on weights, it doesn't fill up that fast, you know? I don't have a visual volume perspective, but I look at the weights and what goes through the public, you know, and Shellsburg is about once a week, I think, you know, it might be a 5th time a month, but it's usually, I think, about 4 services per month. Now, the flip side, the one across the street is 8 or 9 times a month, but it's been showing fairly decent weights that it must be getting filled up, you know. Now, you know, even with our old system, you know, you'd have people that would just show up with lots of cardboard boxes, but they didn't pop the bottoms out of them and flatten them out, and you know, you get number of people that do that and throw them in there, and all of a sudden you got a
Full container.
you got a full container, but you got 0 weight there, you know.
Well, you gonna talk to the mayor? Okay. All right. I think we probably need to get this back on the agenda then.
Next week.
Okay. All right.
So
And
it's for recycling.
if he needs to go back to the council, you would know that, and then let Haley know.
Okay.
All right. You hang on to this.
Want any comments from me? And I don't know what more I have. I'm gonna be going next Tuesday.
I don't know if you have that, any extra input. I'm good. Okay. Thank you, Myron. Anything else, gentlemen?
Good.
All right.
All right.
Okay, Martin, for the billboard regulations, I know that's on next week's agenda. Just look at my notification.
There aren't any billboards in there, right? Except
So
one
it's
down
not,
at
it has
Blair's.
to be on the owner's ground.
It's on private property. We have one down at North Blairstown that I have learned here in the last, doing some research, that it's actually in the right of way, but most people, I don't think, realize the right of way was wider all the way north of town on the east side of the road. I thought it ended at that, but it goes all the way to the convenience, or the gas pumps. All the way to the
Signage.
Yeah, there's billboard signage going up throughout the county, and I was approached as well. Haven't done anything.
The guy from Palo.
I don't know where he's from. So,
No,
But all
somebody else
the
can
ones
do
that
it.
I'm aware of, minus that one, have all been on private property.
That's what I thought
yeah,
too.
he has to go through, if it's along a highway, he's gotta get,
Got through the state.
Right.
Because I had a gal from 5 Star Realty call me. And wanted permission out here on 218. She was actually gonna put that on private property. And I says, you still need
Still
to
need to touch
contact
the
the
DOT.
state,
Yep.
even though it's on private property.
They just need confirmation that it's, I shouldn't just, I know that they need to review it, and as long as it's on private property, it's fine. And years ago, the DOT by administrative code used to have a setback yet back from the right of way.
Right.
But, that has been relieved considerably. I know, I think it's still on the interstate system, which is why those billboards are farther back than right next to the property lines. But non-interstate roadways, I think they've loosened that up, but it still has to be on private property.
Okay.
All right,
thank you.
good day. Sunshine now. Dry things out though.
Morning, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
Morning. Normally I'd greet you with a handshake, but I guess you can't do that anymore. So,
It's so close with an elbow.
yeah. So what Scott's given you, you looked to the EMA Commission for a recommendation on what to do with the siren system, and we went to a meeting in Lynn County, we had a meeting of our own, and we talked about it at least 2 commission meetings, and come up with, and Tracy was involved in all of this, every bit of it. Gary came to the meeting over in Lynn County. basically came up with 4 options and put it out to a vote. And the option that got the most votes was option number 1. Not for the county not to accept the system. And so this is the recommendation we're passing on to you. You guys do what you want, and I made it clear to the commission that we are going to be supportive of whatever you decide. So, I mean, there's so many, it's not as clear cut here as it is in Lynn County. There's a lot of variables to consider. We realize that. So, that's what we've decided. I mean, it was not unanimous, but I guess at that, we're open for questions or comments.
I didn't vote because I didn't want to sway anybody's.
I understood. Yep. You were involved in the process. That's all that was important to me. Yep.
So does, the Parks Commission they don't have any say, or did you talk to them at all?
So now that the commission has made a recommendation, which is, so do not accept,
Conservation Commission?
no, our EM commission, sorry. So the do not accept the offer just basically means the commission doesn't feel they want to take on ownership of the system should it be offered to us and have the annual maintenance fee attached into our budget, which you would have to fund through general supplemental, blah, 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 you know how all that works.
For debt service.
For a portion of the county to be covered under a siren system that is there for a nuclear emergency, and once that nuclear emergency is gone, then do we keep the sirens for weather or not? So that was the recommendation. The big asterisk with do not accept the offer is, to me, that means we don't want to pay for it. That's the recommendation out of the EM Commission, is we don't want to keep that system in place and pay for it.
Exactly.
But Dwayne Arnold and all the owners of Dwayne Arnold over the years have always been obviously a great partner with us. It's more than likely that Lynn County will be keeping it in place on their side. And Dwayne Arnold and their owners, Next Era Energy, would like nothing better than to make the transfer of a siren system as simple as possible for their paperwork and legal team. And so the possibility does still exist, if they're going to offer the system to both Lynn and Benton County at no charge, that we would still accept it and take it with the understanding that we're not going to operate it. That gives us the opportunity that it makes paperwork easy for them as an entity to transfer ownership to, and I'll just say Benton County Emergency Management Commission. Okay, so they transfer ownership. It's a legal document. We sign off. We now own all those sirens. That makes it easy for us then to make an agreement with the city of Shellsburg, the city of Atkins, the city of Urbana, for them to keep the ones they want to keep, where we just transfer ownership from one government entity to another at no cost. Otherwise, Dwayne Arnold's going to have to make individual agreements with all of those communities. So that's something to look at, just for ease of being a good partner with them on their way out of business. Lynn County Emergency Management Coordinator has also expressed interest that they may want some more sirens than they currently have, that they would then be able to, if we accepted the ones on our side, they would be able to, at their expense, come and take those sirens, move them over to the Lynn County side. And that could be just, again, it's a paperwork agreement, there's no money exchanged. We would not want to go into it with the idea that we could then turn around and sell them, because if we were going to do that, then Dwayne Arnold was just going to keep them and sell them themselves. But they would like to see public use out of those sirens, whether it's us or then we give them, if I advertise those statewide, that there was a free siren for the cost of taking it out of the ground and moving it to where you wanted to move it to, I'm sure I could get rid of all of them in a year. They're all less than 5 years old. They're basically brand new sirens. And there are a lot of government agencies that can't afford the 30 to 40,000 to buy it outright, but they can sure afford the money to send a truck over and move it. So, that's all for coming down the road yet, because we don't even have an official offer yet, but Dwayne Arnold was interested even before they made an offer of what the two counties were most likely to do. So our EM Commission recommendation is we don't want to keep them in place and pay for them. Now, you guys can change your mind and say, no, we think it's a community benefit to that population of eastern Benton County to keep them in for a weather alert system, and we're willing to put the money in your budget and pay for them, and we'll justify it. Whatever you guys decide is what we're going to support as a commission, because obviously our funding comes through you levying taxes to the residents and putting it in our budget. So
What is the
you get
dollar,
final say.
what is the dollar amount that it would cost to keep them?
That was about, our side of the fence was gonna be about 56,000 for annual maintenance.
That's annual.
Every year.
Every year.
And item 4 shows if we took 7 of them and moved them to the parks, that's an annual maintenance of $11,200
After the
Plus
cost
the
of moving.
8,500
after the cost
per
of moving.
location.
Yes,
Per
8,500 per
location,
siren,
yeah.
because
So-
that 8,500 not only is the physical moving, it's the cost to reprogram them into our radio system and off of that one. So there's,
Even if conservation paid for it, we fund conservation.
right,
Yeah, it's a catch-22. So.
Yeah.
And by not accepting their offer, they may come up with a different plan.
right.
I don't think they want to deal with it, period.
Yeah, they would like to make it as simple as possible on their side, I do know that.
Yeah.
So the three cities are my biggest concern is the easier, there's 35 total sirens that are in the Benton County side. Each city, the way it's set up now, should keep at least 2. Urbana should probably keep 3, the way they're expanded out to cover their community. But again, we haven't talked to any of them yet. So, because we had to get through this process first. Now that's my next step, is approaching the 3 cities to say, hey, it's possible that you may need to make an agreement with Dwayne Arnold. You better start thinking about how many you want to keep, if any, for your community, because you're going to take over ownership and maintenance.
The biggest
So-
problem I had was, this is for the eastern portion
Exactly.
of the county. To
That's
hell
right.
with the western portion,
That's,
you know.
I'm with you.
Yeah, so,
We've had that conversation many times.
I don't envy you guys at all for having to make this decision. I mean, it's
Right.
Can,
nothing that's clear cut.
let's say Keystone or Mount Auburn or somebody wants one of these sirens, can they go buy it and then use it in their town? Or how is,
well, Scott said the easiest thing to do would be to accept the sirens and then contract with the individual communities for them to pay for the moving and maintenance of them. So, isn't that what you just said?
Actually, give them the siren, but
They
they're
give us the
responsible
siren,
for the cost.
and they're responsible for
Yeah,
the
they're
cost.
responsible for the cost.
And
Mount
so,
Auburn did have interest.
Yeah,
in
Mount
it.
Auburn did have interest in
Yeah.
it.
this seems like, I mean, this is your the commission's recommendation.
Yep.
But that doesn't have to stop there, because
Right.
you need to visit with the local communities in the county.
Yep.
And see if
Right,
by chance they have interest in it,
right.
you know, Belle
Exactly.
Plaine, you know.
They already have them.
Where do they get
Luzerne and Mount Auburn are the 2 only communities that are not upgraded to do
Okay.
sirens. Those are the only 2 communities.
The only 2, alright, but you said.
And Watkins. That's under your
Yeah.
umbrella though,
Yeah.
so.
We get tied to a dead tree.
What's that?
We get tied to a dead tree.
Yeah.
Well, it would be nice to, have sirens in a Watkins.
Well, no doubt, no doubt. But, you know, I think once you get to visiting with some communities,
Right.
you may want to come back to us
Exactly.
and,
Yeah.
you know, you may have another thought from Dwayne Arnold too.
Right. That's why we wanted to get to this stage.
Yeah.
Get this done first with the commission, to you as a recommendation. Now we know what that recommendation is. Now I can start contacting the cities about, hey, are you gonna wanna keep your sirens in your community? How many? What are you willing to do? You know, so. And Mount Auburn and Luzerne, I was gonna reach out to both of those. Mount Auburn's already expressed interest, so I already know that answer. They're interested in one.
Sure.
So.
What about Walford? They have
They have them,
sirens.
yep. They've got new ones, fairly new, yep. They have 4, I believe, 3 for sure, I think they have 4. It's on their own system though, because they weren't part of, they were outside the Dwayne Arnold DEC, but
These sirens are located on private property, I presume.
Right away.
right-of-ways, city right-of-ways, yep. And, oh, the ones in the county, they're all on, yeah, they're all on
County
county
property.
right-of-way, yep.
Okay.
Because they had to get permits every time they needed to move one or put one up from Myron.
They're, on, most of them are on light poles.
What kind of liability if we accept these?
That's the other question that we need to find out, because they're in the county right away. If we, you know, let's say I couldn't get rid of all of them, and so there's 6 of them still abandoned in place in the county right away, right? What's our liability? I don't know. Somebody runs off the road and hits the pole, and it wouldn't have been there if we'd have taken it. I don't know. I mean, we can go on and on that one, so
Yeah.
that's for a lawyer.
I think they're mounted on the REC poles.
No, those are
No,
going
they
to
were
our
bigger.
poles.
These babies are a lot bigger.
Yep, those are, all those poles were bought and put in by
Mhm.
Dwayne Arnold. They own the poles, they own the siren, they own the solar charger that's on the pole. These are all solar also. They aren't using electricity for the battery charges. They went all solar over the last 5 years when they upgraded.
Presume part of the maintenance fee is to change those batteries.
Batteries and radio adjustments annually, and the repairs, drivers, which the speakers in this, they call them drivers, they go out a lot.
Sure.
That's a regular maintenance item. Pretty much after each monthly test, there's a driver being replaced in one of the sirens from the feedback that comes back. So pretty normal. I mean, they sit there and then 30 days later, all of a sudden you send a signal and they blast off. Well, you've got 30 days of a bird, you know, I mean, all kinds of things go on with those sirens. Have they been hit by lightning in the previous 30 days? And I mean, all kinds of things. So it's regular maintenance. That's
How much does that regular maintenance cost?
That's the figure we came up with if we would do, based on what they're spending now to the nuclear standards, which we don't have to be quite that bad. So when I say maintenance with siren system, we have to do a live monthly test. They're required by NRC to do a live monthly test. And if any issues show up with any of those sirens during that test, they have 48 hours to fix it, to get them totally 100% operable again.
And that's the annual fee of $56,000, which Gary just asked.
There,
what's
we
the
would
cost?
still have to have
Right.
either an employee of one of our 2 commissions or a contractor hired to regularly do
The testing.
the maintenance after the testing.
You wouldn't want to do the test on Friday, would you?
No, in fact, if Lynn County's already, it's more than likely Lynn County will keep the system on their side and they're not gonna change anything. It's still gonna be 8:45 a.m. Wednesday morning, monthly test. They're not gonna change anything that the people are used to. I mean, for decades, people know 8:45 a.m. on the first Wednesday of the month, the sirens are going off. At the test. So there would be no reason to change any of that if the system stayed in place. So yes, this is the start. Yes, I will get you even more information, but in the meantime, now you all 3 are up to speed on what we went through and what the options were that we offered and what even other more options might be as I continue the talks with Dwayne Arnold. I'd like to get to the point with their corporate where we have an answer of what they're willing to do. It makes my job a lot easier. Because right now it's all, if it should be offered, would you, and so it's like we're playing this if game, which it's hard to make a final decision on an if.
Good.
But you guys can start thinking about it also. I know what Tracy said as the supervisor on our commission during our commission meeting, and I don't disagree with your comment either. The sirens were put in to warn of to alert of a problem at the nuclear power plant. That's the only reason they're there. If that risk goes away, why do we need the sirens? Dwayne Arnold all these years have been a great partner with us to allow our use for weather warnings. They didn't have to do that. So even though we got used to that, there are other siren systems around nuclear plants in the country that don't allow the locals to use them for anything. So those people in those states haven't had the benefit that we've had. So yes, I understand the population that's there is used to that, and used to having an outdoor siren go off when severe weather is in the area, but that isn't their intended use. That wasn't their purpose, and if that purpose is over with, then why do we need the sirens? The other part of it is, I don't think we're there yet, but there's already talk in the emergency management world of people starting to ask the question, why do we need outdoor warning sirens anymore when we have all the capability that we carry on our hip and in our pocket to get any kind of alert we want? So I'm thinking over the next decade, the attitude about outdoor warning sirens may be changing anyway.
Right, and you indicated that Benton County may want additional, so this may be, after you talk to the other communities, there may not be any really left after.
There might not be.
So,
right. So I will start gathering that information next. That's why we're doing this early, so we still have some time, because we're expecting an answer. We, Lynn and Benton County, requested an answer out of Dwayne Arnold by this fall as we go into budget time, so that we knew what to put into next year's, following year's budget. So this will be wrapped up this fall.
Appreciate you bringing up your recommendation. Obviously, we accept your recommendation, we just aren't taking action.
Sure.
No, I anticipated that.
Yep.
Other questions, gentlemen?
Well, good luck with it.
Thanks, Steve.
What else can I say?
Yeah.
Get all your imagery yesterday?
Yes, I did. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yep. Starting to pull things together now, trying to. So,
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Gentlemen, any other items?
We adjourn, I guess.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. I used to know exactly how many sirens there were, but I don't recall.